Welcome to the Evolve Talent and HR show. We are building the rooms where HR and talent leaders learn, connect, and evolve. I'm Anna Morgan, and this is the space where people first leaders come for courageous conversations. Whether you're leading from the C suite, emerging as a new voice, building community, or driving change within your organization, this show is for you. Every episode brings voices that are driving change in the HR and talent community. We're going to get into the strategies, conversations, and movements that matter. Because here's what we know. Every conversation matters. Every introduction, every shared experience, it creates momentum that extends far beyond the room. And that is the Evolve multiplier. When we collaborate over compete, when we connect with intention, the opportunities, the relationships, and the impact compound across our entire community. You've tuned into a podcast, but this is actually your connection to the entire Evolve ecosystem. New episodes come out weekly. Now it's your turn to evolve. Welcome. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Evolve Talent and HR show. Words are sometimes hard. And I'm Anna Morgan. My guest today gets introduced as a 2-time TEDx speaker, an author, and a self-care coach. Kathy Love has been by my side as a fellow outlier from the Outlier Project for many years now and has had a front row seat, has been a core support person for me as I've built the Evolve experience and conference. But what people skip about Kathy is, yes, the TED Talks, yes, the being a published author and a self-care coach, but you were a VP of a company called Something New, which is all about talent strategy. So you know this work from the inside. And I'm so excited to welcome you to the show to really share your story and some of your tools for HR, talent, and people leaders so they can prioritize their self-care. So welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself? Give us that 30-second intro. Over to you.
Thanks, Anna. I am so happy to be here and so happy to talk about all things Evolve and the work that you're doing with your community. I've got to see it firsthand, like you said. And what I really focus on and what I was at Evolve the first year for was to talk about true self-care through the lens of codependency.
Yes.
And when I look back at the work with Something New in the recruiting space, there were so many signs of codependency. And even at that time, this was going back 10 years, I'm still in that role, that it becomes more obvious to me now when leaders are responding and moving through from that codependent part of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So before self-care, before all of that, I mean, you're one of us. You have been working with, supporting, placing, advising talent and people first leaders for over 10 years. And I mean, yeah, you're one of us. What made you say yes originally to being a part of the one-man band with Scott McGregor in that startup space? Because I think you had shared with me at one point, you had a much safer, more stable, big benefits opportunity on the table at the same time all those years ago.
That's right. Yes, I forgot I had shared that with you. Yeah, so it was between that opportunity, which of course, prior to that, my life had been blown up and there was so much uncertainty and I was financially responsible for everyone, the kids and all of that. My family, my friends, anyone around me thought that the smartest move for me would be to take that W-2 and the benefits and kind of no matter what it would take for me to do that, that was the wise move. I ended up meeting with Scott first by phone, then in person. And I just knew that the name of his company, Something New, was really representative of what he was doing. I had zero experience or interest with recruiters or that whole space. So funny story is the whole reason that I called him was because I knew he was a recruiter. So I called him to get me a job. Right?
Oh, the universe is so fun.
Yeah, so that's when I realized you don't go to a recruiter for a job, but that they have the jobs that they're looking to fill and they will come and find you.
Yes.
So that was my first lesson. In my codependency at that time, I was in such transition and I didn't have a lot of
tools?
I had lots of tools. And that was almost a problem. He even said that I reminded him of a platypus, which is now our Outlier Project mascot.
Comes full circle.
Yes, like a Jane of all trades type of thing. I could do everything, but I didn't have the confidence to say I could do one thing well.
Master it. Yeah.
And so what Scott was looking for was someone to help him take his list. He had 100 things on a piece of paper and help him get through those and get them done. And I've always been very resourceful and being able to figure things out. I said, fine, I can do all of that for you.
That's one of the strengths of being a Jill or a Jack of all trades actually works in that startup environment sometimes.
Absolutely. Right. You need to be able to change. So I'm working in the books and in the marketing and in the recruiting in all the spaces. I'm also having conversations strategic wise for the company with Scott. But this is actually our 10-year anniversary of working together. And in the past 10 years, so much has happened. And luckily, so much of it has been growth and positive.
That's awesome.
Yeah, even through all of the rest of the things that have been happening.
I mean, just in the time that I've been a part of the Outlier Project, and we will include information in the show notes for our listeners because it is a community of people first leaders that believe that anyone can be ordinary, but we can choose to be extraordinary. And I've loved watching the evolution of the Outlier Project from now hearing the story of the platypus to it being your mascot. We really need to get a picture of the platypus and Lily together, mascot to mascot. In the time that I was a founding member, what year was that? 2020. I was a top career advisor for a while, and this community is just full of people that inspire, motivate, support, educate. And it's just been amazing to see the iterations and how you and Scott have evolved and how you've just attracted such an amazing group of people who are doing bold shit. I'm just going to say
Well, that's the thing. Like when you signed up, it was likely because we started out focused on talent and recruitment, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where Scott was coming from with something new. And so that was the community we started. But what we realized and what is real, what is true in the world is that
Right.
people in HR, everything doesn't have to fit in that box. There's so much more to learn from people who are experts or have done really well in other areas. And that's the beauty of the Outlier Project is we do have people in HR, but we also have people in all of the other things.
Yeah. Authors, speakers, solopreneurs, corporate executives. And as I'm saying this, I'm like, Morgan, you need to get back in there and be more active in the community. So I'm holding myself accountable starting August 1st.
I got
I'm
you.
gonna dip my toes back in. So to wrap up the 10 years of talent strategy, like what would you say has been why people leaders burn out at work? And what did you learn in that capacity that you may have not learned now as a self-care coach?
We did primarily work with startups. And
Okay.
so in that phase, the people that we were talking to were the founders or the co-founders, the CEOs. They were doing everything. They were potentially doing the sales and marketing and the bookkeeping. And so one of my favorite books is The E-Myth that talks about the whole entrepreneurial journey and how challenging that is because you're now in charge of finances, recruiting, all of these things that you didn't necessarily sign up for. And
I have this conversation with myself every week. I'm like, I am now learning a new skill.
right, you're the
of
head of every
photography.
department.
Yes. And I will say, thank goodness for AI now because it's such a great brainstorming partner. I would say figuring some of this out 10 years ago would have been a little clunkier, but I think we were a lot more face to face back then, more client visits, more lunches, more dinners, more client entertaining, all that kind of stuff. The founders, they're doing everything.
Right. They're doing everything and they are taking care of everything else before themselves.
So, what does that look like when they are caregiving essentially and doing all the things and they have nothing left?
Well, I just want to say that too is I talk a lot about taking care of nurses who take care of everyone else but themselves. You could literally put in any other word for nurse and it's the same. it's parents, it's entrepreneurs, it's whatever you can imagine. Many people take care of everything and everyone else before themselves. And so
Mm-hmm.
it becomes burnout. I mean, they could be working long hours through a day. They could be working through the weekend. They could be
Mm-hmm.
working without any type of a break for months, for years. And the concept is, well, as soon as this happens, then I'll be able to take a break. But that as soon as it happens may never happen if they're burned out. And that's the hard part to help them see because
Yeah.
they just don't see it happening if they don't keep going.
Yeah. And it's like, if I don't do this, everything else is going to fall down. And it's so human. It's so relatable. And you might have some data. It impacts women and men equally, right? I think we show up and seek support in different ways, but the silent suffering is the biggest concern. Part of why I keep going and keep building Evolve is, one, I'm in love with this community. And I believe we are truly the people architects of the world of work. And there is always going to be a level of humanity and connection and intuitiveness that organizations will need to facilitate, manage, and execute great hiring. And as an entrepreneur, building this is all about solving loneliness, a massive mental health crisis. They say that over half of US Americans report feeling isolated and unconnected. And in a world where we have access to connect in so many ways,
24 hours a day.
why are we suffering silently? And, it's connected to a much bigger ecosystem of challenges in the world of work. But I know from my own experience, building the first conference in 69 days and just getting it done, to navigating my family in crisis right before Evolve 26. And even after that, this year has been a lot about recovery and being radically honest with ourselves. And I think it was our fellow friend Courtney that mentioned, like, turning the mirror, right? And I've been reflecting a lot about that. And it's like, I'm staring in the mirror and I'm asking myself the questions: how do I prioritize me first so that I can be the best mom, the best wife, and continue to pursue my dream? And the only person getting in my way is me, right? And it's so hard to admit that, right? And also change your behavior, especially when your default is drop everything, take care of it, get it done, and then come back to you, right? Do you want to add to that around the mirror?
Yeah, I also think that beyond the emotional toll that it takes on our bodies, it takes a physical toll because often people are putting off their workouts or their walk after work or before work because they're just grasping at that extra hour where they know they can get stuff done. So it impacts them emotionally, it impacts them physically, which over time we know if you continue to not do your exercises and then the bad eating habits come in. And so that's one thing. The other is you talk about substances and things like that, but also financially. So we have a lot of leaders who are dumping everything they own, borrowing money against nothing, and dumping everything they have into a company without making sure that it's sustainable, that it's not creating more stress. And of course, you have to put money in, but we're talking about balance, right? Like, yeah, none of these things are bad to skip a workout. It's when it's out of balance. And I truly believe that that's what happened in my own situation when everything went the way it did.
Right.
It was because my ex-husband at the time was trying to keep everything afloat, keep the workers working, keep them being able to support their families, keep this whole machine running, but it was at the risk of it all.
Your family finances and a whole lot more, right? Gosh, this is hitting me pretty hard. And I do want to try something. And you're someone I can be super vulnerable with. And I know that you have some questions that you like to ask people to help them see where and whether they are depleting themselves. And I know that I am. Why don't do you want to run some of those questions at me and we can kind of feel through them?
Yes. And I love that the last thing you just said was we can feel through them, because the answers to these questions are not in our minds. They are in our bodies. And
Mhm.
the easiest way to get the true answer, and not the answer you think you should say or that you've been used to saying, is to feel it in your body. And the way we get into our body is just what you did. Take that deep breath
I
and
have my
just
feet flat on the floor.
come into the moment. And it doesn't have to be woo woo. It doesn't have to be where you're sitting on a meditation pillow. We're talking about just taking a breath.
Yes,
Literally.
and I love that we had your session at Evolve 25 and Jess Miller did how to do
Right.
breath work at work. And even more so, I love leaders are embracing these new modalities because why? Because they don't have any other options. And it's free, it's oxygen, it's easy to learn, and it is a nervous system proven regulator. I
Right.
know I have to do it a lot when I get in bed because I struggle to sleep and I work in my brain as I'm sleeping sometimes. And
Right.
the way I can help myself do that is just doing like 10 rounds of box breathing. And that usually does the trick.
And besides being free and easy, breathing is also always accessible. We're always doing it. So you can do it when
Yeah.
you get in the car if you have anxiety about driving over the bridge, or when you get in bed to help you fall asleep, or when you wake up to help you get into your day. So everything always leads back to the breath. And so that's where I would start with anybody even listening. If they want to ask themselves these questions, you don't even necessarily have to ask the questions, as long as you just take that breath and sit with yourself, and
Mhm.
the answers will just come to you as
Yeah.
soon as you give yourself that time and space.
To me, my strong opinion, it is about doing the harder work and the mirror and being radically honest with self.
Yes.
Then the next thing is the how, right? And how do we change our behavior? What does that look like? Again, progress over perfection. I have to look at that a lot where I'm like, I got 3 workouts in and 2 walks, and next week I'm going to focus, have a goal of this and some prepared meals, right? So I'm not running around hungry all the time. So yeah,
Okay,
let's
let's
get
go.
into it.
All right. I'm going to start with what I think is one of the more challenging questions. So, Anna Morgan, whose love, approval, or acceptance are you still chasing through your work?
Yeah, we're totally going to cry. Whose love, affection, approval am I chasing through the current work? Well, I mean, I'm just going to think out loud. I think back to my ADHD diagnosis where they in 1988 I did ink blot test and math quizzes and word problems and all the things that already made me hate school, and I had been suffering the consequences of that since kindergarten essentially. And by 5th grade I was like, the second time around 5th grade I was like, my brain is different. And years later, I read the psych eval and it said I'd never graduate from college. I'd never make more than $10 an hour. I'd be an hourly worker. It was pages and pages of just all my inadequacies and my not enoughs, right? And I don't know where that kind of rebel energy has come from because I'm more of an obliger, but I use that as fuel. And so when I'm faced with an objection or a big thing, it's like, tell me I can't do it and watch me do it, sometimes to my detriment, right? So, who am I trying to please and get approval from in my industry along with my peers? I've already done it, right? I left corporate for legacy and because my daughter was my mirror. And I did not want to paint a picture of the world of work and adulting as it looked at that time. And she said to me, why did you go back if you're coming home raging or crying every day? And I was like,
Great
well,
question.
good question. And so from there, I started my exit plan and my strategy. I believe in what I'm building. I'm definitely chasing, I think, proving more so to myself that this is what the universe has tapped me on the shoulder to keep doing. And it's pushing new edges for me in this season around time management, self management, self-care and letting go, scaling and hiring and doing the things you were talking about that founders are faced with when things don't work out as you had hoped. So I think the other big one that I'm chasing is probably my spouse. Someone who was a successful salesperson and has been at the C-suite of a startup, successful organization, and then now is kind of winding down his career. And that's also part of the challenge between I'm just getting started, he's kind of winding down, and how do I balance that gray area? So I feel like I have done the job in my community and people want more, and I have this huge community of cheerleaders and support. I want to show my daughter that people with a different brain, that learn differently, that have different strengths can build something beautiful and successful. And then with my husband, even though I've placed a million people with his company, I truly don't think he understands the ripple effect and impact of what happens in the rooms that I curate. And I'm not going to force that. I know that light bulb download will come when it's meant to. And he is one of my biggest cheerleaders and support systems. And this process has helped us overcome so much. And our money story has gotten healthier. But I would say Charlotte, Tim, and myself.
Okay. Thank you for being honest.
And I got through it without the ugly cry face. And that you said that was the hardest one.
I think so. Yeah. What part of you believes that exhaustion, getting to your limit, your end, is proof that you're valuable, that you're doing what you need to be doing?
I mean, as a neurodiverse entrepreneur, that comes with unique challenges and opportunities that I can get an insane amount of work done in small periods with some hyper focus when it comes, right? And what I've loved about building this is that it hasn't felt like work. It has been truly igniting where I'm like excited to do stuff that I had non-preferred task Anna would say in the past of customizing a CRM, building operational foundations so that I can let go and I can really do this. Repeat the question again for me.
It was which part of you believes that exhaustion is proof of your success or that you're valuable?
Yeah. No, I don't like being tired. I mean, I had a day a few weeks ago after our big house move, and I mean, I had pinched nerves in both of my wrist and my elbow, and I had these braces on. And I woke up one day and I was like, I should not feel this bad. And obviously, there's hormones and supplements and all the things that come with being a 51-year-old. But I was like, something has to give, right? And I would say the part of me that allows myself to get exhausted 90% of the time is out of I'm just into what I'm doing and I'm enjoying it to my detriment, which means where I have a chance to self manage is creating time blocks and using timers and following some sort of schedule and holding myself accountable to that as well. So that's a growth area that I'm focused on this season. The other 10% is a little bit of ego, right? Like if I get her done, then we'll be good. And I am also guilty, like you were saying of your husband, that I now have a team and I've already gone this far. I can't stop now, right? And oh my gosh, if I didn't host another Evolve, like what would people say? So that's the other 10%, I would say.
I'm glad that you pointed out that you could be enjoying everything you're doing and still it's leading toward burnout. Because it doesn't have to look like you're suffering and that you're complaining or anything.
No, I'm just like, I'm going to make this fun Bridgerton CapCut video because maybe it won't convert in the way content or my media team would want me to share, but it's me, right? And part of what has been the success of building community is showing up unapologetically, right? And being silly and raw and just Anna Morgan in that way. And being okay that either people get it or they don't.
What do you think people would say, or what makes you afraid of stopping? What do you think people might say or judge?
Well, oh, well, she did it twice, but good luck, keep going, right? And I'm trying to be a catalyst for change to show that all conferences are suffering for attendee sales, right? So it gets real funky out there real fast. And I have volunteered at what could have been a competitor's conference. I am trying to innovate and create new ways that we can support each other to help solve this until the ticket sales catch up with what we're seeing with people just flooding all generations to events, clubs, all the things because they're not getting that connection or the community or the support from their organizations. Now, they're job hugging and holding on for dear life for the wrong reasons, but that's another story. So, yeah, I mean, there were so many things that could have derailed both conferences. And again, you were right there where I was like, what if I push it back a couple months and then getting hit with the fact that it would cost me $18,000 to push it back 3 months? There's that rebel energy that said, I ain't giving you that 18 grand. It's happening. We are on the runway. And, one of the sessions from this year, Lee Cage talked about the Scully story. And it's such a great talk and clearly landed in my body because the fact of Evolve 26 is I didn't have the right flight crew, right? And I had a massive mechanical failure. And so we had to get off the plane and call for a second one. And I don't know how we actually made it to our destination, but we did. But I certainly don't ever want to be on that runway again. So I'm also at the point in my life where I kind of don't care. Like if I decide to burn it all down, like I can. But I love this community. I love passing the mic to new voices. I love showing others that we can support each other from a collaborative way and that there is enough to go around. Like we are not going to have this figured out in the next 5 years. Okay. How many more questions? Maybe two?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you answered one of them, which is if everything career-wise, if everything went away,
Mhm.
what would still make you feel like proud of yourself? Like you still feel good about yourself, that you're successful, that you're basically proud of yourself?
I am proud of myself. And I've done so much work since 25 around like accepting that and receiving. And this season is a lot more about the action of allowing others to step in and help.
If everything else went away, who are you?
Gosh, I mean, I'm so many things, right? If I wasn't building Evolve, I would probably get recertified again in yoga. I would probably volunteer to do some fundraising for organizations that I adore. I'd probably get more involved in other communities where I could be of service. I would really say my default, and maybe it's from what I've picked up over my years being alcohol free, that I feel my most self when I'm being of service in some capacity. And Evolve and this ecosystem and this community is driven from a service mindset and servant leadership, heart centered space. And that's one of the things that I'm also most proud of.
I wish I had said this at the beginning, but obviously there are no right or wrong answers. So I wasn't keeping score. I wasn't grading you on the answers. The honesty is the best thing that we can all do for ourselves is answer the
Mhm.
questions honestly. But before that, we have to just ask ourselves the questions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would encourage people to do that.
Yeah, that you will share more of those questions and we can share them in the show notes and people can tune in and find you on LinkedIn and other various places. I know you're a guest on lots of other podcasts as well. So where do we go from here? I'm going to pause for a second and kind of recalibrate after answering those questions. So I'll let you take the host moment while I glance down at my notes and kind of recenter. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. So I want to talk about more of your story. I was hoping that we would really focus on the things that HR and talent leaders pick up that maybe they shouldn't. When you describe your work as helping people kind of sort out what's theirs to carry and what isn't, walk me through like how you would help a leader decide what to pick up and what is theirs as they're navigating making decisions about their team and executing a layoff. What would that look like?
Well, it would look different for every situation. It would look a little bit different for everybody, but the same kinds of fears or things that are holding people back from doing that are the same. So for some people, they have a tremendous fear of hurting the person that they're laying off. Many times they know them well, they know their families, they know their situations, and they know that this is not going to be something that they will receive happily. So there's a tremendous fear in hurting someone else. They may have a friendship that's bonded, and so they're worried about ruining a
Yeah.
friendship or a
We spend
relationship.
so much time with the people that we work with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And especially in smaller companies, the lines like we talked about are very
A
fluid.
blur.
So the first thing is every leader needs to know who they are, what
Mhm.
they're made of, where they're coming from. And if they know that, then they know that their responsibility to lead the team, the company,
Mhm.
and to make the decisions that they need for the greater good of the company. And that this is a part of their job. It's not that they're doing it because they're a bad person, because they don't
Mhm.
like the person, because they are wishing anyone harm. They
Mhm.
accept that this is part of the job and what they need to do.
Yeah, it's not personal, it's business, sadly, and it
Right,
sounds callous to say it that way, but it is someone's life, and where we work is one of the biggest decisions and a privilege that I found as a recruiter and talent leader that I think it is as big as deciding to get married or buy a house or decide to have a child or move internationally. I mean, where you say yes to invest over 40 hours a week is a
right.
life-changing
And who you
decision.
spend that with. And so
Yeah,
you may work in, again, now this is the leader's responsibility to know the company that they're working for or with.
yeah, that they've
So does
built,
that
yeah.
company lay someone off with an email? Does that company take care of the person they're laying off? Do they offer them services, resume writing services, recommendations? Do they help
An
them?
off-boarding call or
Yeah,
a feedback call, like, I've been laid off a couple times, and only one time was I given an opportunity to talk about my experience, and that at least made me feel somewhat valued and have a voice, knowing that I couldn't change the outcome, but it was more human. And whether they used the information for good or just were like checking a box, it is what it is. How you do it, delivering bad news as someone who used to have a huge temp population and that would have to go remove people from offices, it's the humanity and the feedback and the empathy
right.
and the words
How are
that
you
really,
addressing that person? Are you looking down at your paper, writing notes while you're delivering the news, or are you looking the person in the eye as a person
yeah,
for
and saying, when I built this 5 years ago, this was my vision. These are the challenges. This is why. And here's what I'm going to do to be the best support as you transition through this life change.
right? And so what that leaders is to carry is the responsibility of handling that in the way that they know best. And even to perhaps challenge the way the company has always done it. Being confident enough to speak up for yourself and say, can we try this? And offer
Yeah.
suggestions. But that all comes from being able to know yourself and trust yourself and believe that what you have to offer this company is valuable. So
Yeah.
even as a leader, you're still in a position where you have to challenge those fears.
Per day. So, I mean, I feel like I kind of glossed over your mention of codependency in the people leadership space, right? And I just want to give you some airtime to kind of bring that back up because that ties into this and what we decide to pick up and carry as ours versus how can we take action in service of prioritizing ourselves so that we can lead through scaling, downsizing, new technology, AI disruption, fill in the blanks.
Yeah. Well, everything we've talked about has been about codependency. We just haven't named it out loud. And most people don't fully understand what that means, and most people don't identify with it. And I would first say, I believe we are all on a scale of codependency. Some are further along in healing. Sometimes we go back and forth on the scale. Sometimes we're one place at home and one place at work. The questions to ask yourself in that curiosity about the codependency is the question I asked you: who are you looking for validation from? From yourself, from your coworkers, from your boss,
Your community.
from the people that work for you? Are you the best leader they've ever had? Right? Is that thought going through your mind?
Or the thought is going through my mind, there's a reason I chose to be an individual contributor
Right.
most of my career because leading, delegating, all of that is hard. And it forces you to deal and face the codependency, the people pleasing, and the picking up of other things. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that is all it. It's usually shows up in fears of being judged, fears of ruining relationships. And that is why we people please. That is why we take on too much.
Yeah.
Ask me to do something, I'm going to say yes. I'm not going to disappoint them. I'm not going to be considered lazy. I'm not going to be considered not a team player, because
Uh-huh.
those things will trigger my codependency. From a healed place, I can say, I'd love to be able to do that, but I'm full right now. I've
Yeah.
got enough on my plate, and this is where I need to draw my boundary, my line.
Yeah.
That can only come from a healed place when you
True.
can trust yourself enough to know that you are worthy, competent, intelligent, all of the things. And it's okay to claim your space
Yeah.
for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I'm Anna Morgan and I have a hard time saying no. So I think a lot of people would relate to that. So can you help us with a real example of how we can say no with compassion and professionalism that an HR talent leader can use this afternoon or tomorrow?
So,
Asking for a friend.
yeah. So, again, obviously, it's all different situations, and we don't know if this is a time boundary, an emotional boundary, taking on job boundary. We don't know what this is. But what I do know is that we do not need to over explain ourselves, that we don't have to give all of the reasons.
Wait, will you say that louder for the
Yeah.
people in the back?
We do not have to over explain ourselves. That is the first rule. Yes, we can clearly and concisely say, this is not something I'm willing to take on right now. We don't have to say why. I have a kid who's home sick right now. We don't have to offer any of it unless asked. And obviously we can
It's definitely a
give
daily
color to it.
practice.
Usually when we start to feel these places where we're feeling taken advantage of.
Oh my gosh, I literally said that last week.
Yeah. I feel like I'm being taken advantage of. I feel like I can't do this much longer. I can't do one more thing. Those are the words we need to listen for in our own self. Those are the places where we need a boundary. We either needed it or we need it to either put it in place or the next time this comes up. But that's
Nice.
what we're like looking for, to just start practicing putting the boundaries in those places where we're hitting the wall. And then we come up with a succinct response that we're comfortable with, and we state it. But here is the most important thing. You can state it, you can have a t-shirt with it, you can hang it on your wall behind you, and not one person, yeah, not one person has to listen to you.
Mhm.
It is your job to not take anything else on, to not stay 2 hours late after hours. It's your job to enforce the boundary. And that's the part that a lot of people get confused. They think, well, I told them I'm not going to do that anymore. And then the next day, there's a knock on the door.
Yeah. You're speaking my language, and I am feeling this deeply. For people that relate, my answer when I am honest with myself and I'm like, okay, something has to change. A lot of times my default is to get out in community with other people to kind of recharge and kind of shift my energy. I mean, where do people start? And that's how I build friendships and connections. And again, my default is the servant leader, spotlighting others and being curious of others. But through that process, there's a level of healing and educating and leveling up me that happens by surrounding myself with great people. And that's where I often find either borrowing the belief in my community that I am on the right path, or that I get inspired, ignited, or have just the right conversation that connects to something that I haven't even shared that I've been struggling with, but provides that little spark of hope where you feel like the universe has just tapped you on the shoulder and was like, that was said for a reason because you melted down last week and said you felt like you were being taken advantage of. How else do people kind of jumpstart prioritizing themselves and really leading from that wholer space?
Well, I truly believe in the power of community. We know that.
Clearly.
I definitely and all of the things that I've gone through in my life, I could not have done alone. I always had people around me for that. So I will say that. But for people who are just starting to pay attention to this, that is the healing. It's starting to pay attention. It's listening to podcasts like that. It's
Mhm.
asking yourself these questions. Why am I doing what I'm doing? What am I getting out of it? What are
Yeah.
the reasons? The answers again come in that quiet. People can start with just sitting and taking some breaths, getting quiet, see how they feel, see if
Mhm.
anxiety builds and they need to get moving. Okay, well, now they've seen that there's a little anxiety going in there.
Mhm.
And then once we have some sort of idea about what's happening for us, we can turn to the things that bring us out of them or bring us back to ground
To
level.
equanimity. Yeah.
And so we can physically ground ourselves by putting our feet in the grass or going
Yeah.
outside and sitting in nature. We can mentally ground ourselves with a breath. We can ground ourselves with other people who are those mirrors who remind us of who we are and what's important. And it really is different for everyone.
There's not a complete framework or formula because we all come with our unique, and some is heavier and some's lighter baggage of
Right.
sorts.
Yeah. I mean, for some people, they run. For some people, they play golf. It's
Mhm.
whatever it is that is just taking the chatter out of your brain and
Mhm.
allowing you some peace, some calm, and allowing those answers to come to you.
Yeah. As I've kind of moved through a tough nervous system week, I've been working out, and one day I was just angry and got on that elliptical and just, "Arr!" And sure enough, I just don't do a ton of cardio. I'm not a runner or a swimmer or a biker today, but I was slapped in the face with a reminder, hello, endorphins, Morgan. And so I made a mental note, kind of going back to the awareness. Next time I find myself about to have an adult temper tantrum and throw my phone and just act like a fool, I'm going to make myself go down and just hustle on that elliptical for 10 minutes. And then if I still want to have my temper tantrum, I can. I think the other thing I've picked up from recovery is being in community, right? Like holding myself accountable, showing up to meetings, being of service, and picking up this phone when it feels like a million gazillion pounds. And for HR and talent leaders that are putting out fires, dealing with the wildest people challenges ever, it is okay to admit you're not okay. Now, there is a level of discernment I want to advise, right? And always want people with any mental health challenges to seek professional help. And this is
Same.
not a space for that. It is from lived experience, strength, and hope. But for me, being in community and then building spaces where I have a chance to build what I wish existed when I was coming up in the world of work. So I mean, you're the glue, right? You're described as the glue of the Outlier Project. Like, what does that role entail? And like, what does nobody actually see when you're focused on supporting such a dynamic community? Or actually, let's pause. I want to know like what you think kills community the fastest.
Honestly, my answer would be not showing up, because if everyone doesn't show up, there's no community and you
True.
get nothing out of it.
Yeah. Well, it's like a CRM. You get what you put into it,
Right.
right? If it's garbage in, it's garbage out. I mean, I've been reflecting on the difference between hosting events, AKA ex recruiter, talent leader, now moving into event planning. But I truly believe I've been a community builder and creator of safe spaces for bringing unlikely connections together since I was a child, like doing things with my family and my sisters, and then it was a business development strategy, and then it was a way to stay connected during COVID, and it had all these other iterations, kind of like how the Outlier Project has changed. And what's been really cool is seeing people follow along, moving from the job search hotline to job connection Tuesdays to Clubhouse to Ask a Recruiter, and now here in the podcast as the communication hub of Evolve. So you spoke about self care, you did your talk there. And I believe in one of our recap calls or the Evolve reunion, you were so kind enough to share with the 26 speakers your experience at Evolve 25 and what came from saying yes to being a part of Evolve 25 as a speaker.
Yeah, the community that you created, that you brought in, and the vibe of the event was so welcoming, warm, and it felt like community. There was no one I didn't speak to that day. From the coffee line, which I remember standing in that coffee line, I was so excited.
Yes. Thank you, John Baldino and Huma
Yes,
Raso.
that's where I met them.
You want to, will always be the coffee sponsor for
Yeah, I
Evolve.
loved that. But that's how it felt the whole day, was very community centered. And for me, I had done my TEDx in 2014. I'd been to some little bookstores talking about my books and things, small groups. I hadn't been on a stage since 2014. And so that was a big moment for me, especially because of all the healing that had happened by then, that it was a new version of me that was coming out and speaking. And the response that I got and the support that I got and being able to see myself evolve through that experience was just amazing to me, beautiful to me. And what I said it led to is that I then had the confidence to walk onto my second TEDx stage in a completely different zone. I had that feeling from the community. I just felt that love from everyone that I carried with me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, for anyone who's listening, that's like, what is this Evolve conference and Evolve community? How would you describe it? And anything else you want to add from a community builder standpoint that you've witnessed or want to share around where I've been, what happened, and where we are headed next? I can't thank the Outlier Project enough for being a partner. The community itself was such a huge accelerator and confidence boost for me. And I honestly would have been dead in the water both years had it not been for saying yes to the Outlier Project and more present than I am now. But it's okay sometimes to take a step back, especially once I feel like you have put in the relationship ROI.
I mean, I think what you're saying is there are so many places that people can go. There
Yes.
are so many communities out there.
Well, and the data and research that I'm seeing right now is in service of, again, solving this mental health crisis around loneliness, that all generations from Gen Alpha to boomers are getting out in the world because I think one, everyone's hit a tipping point where they're like, I'm done with the icebox challenges. I've watched all the series. I'm lonely. I'm suffering. I want to have some fun. And where AI has disrupted the world of work and just everything, I'm like, it's okay. Bring us back to potlucks and knitting clubs and running clubs. And part of the reason I put myself in crazy containers like the Outlier Retreat and Running Man is because it pushes an edge. And I always find inspiration and innovation outside of that vacuum, right?
Well, I think that's what's similar about Evolve and the Outlier Project. And what I was going to say about Evolve is that being at that conference doesn't feel like you're in a lecture hall. It feels like a holistic approach to a human being who is
Yeah,
in
and a
that space.
human challenges
In the Outlier Project, we focus on building your business, your brain, your
your
buddies, and your
podcast. Yeah.
body. It's the whole person. And so I think they're very much alike. And I don't think you can do everything all at once or every community all at once, but I think it's
Yeah,
important to really think about where you are going to spend your time and who you're spending it with. And I would
absolutely.
certainly spend my time at the Evolve conference.
That's right. Well, we're going 2 days, probably early October of 27, and we are going to focus on intentionality because that's the whole purpose, right? And I am proud of this community and the partners and what we've built so far and how I've watched the friendships blossom, my own connections deepen through these experiences. And, I'm full of gratitude. And I think the message for everyone listening is, you know, just take the first step in service of saying yes to yourself. And remember, it's progress over perfection. And, you know, the impact of exhaustion, right? And people pleasing and all the things, I mean, they will cause dis-ease, right? Disease and
Absolutely.
inflammation and illness and sickness and all the things. And for me, it's always, if not now, when? And this season that feels like the best one yet, but it also feels challenging and exciting. And I needed this reminder today. Hopefully, the community did. And we'll include links to your books, not only her self care shit workbook, but the coloring book was an awesome giveaway at Evolve 25. And I've spread them around the Evolve ecosystem since I had some left. But thank you for saying yes
Yeah,
today.
thank you
And
for having the conversations again about
yeah,
looking at the whole person.
yeah. Last question. And I try to ask everyone this, like, how are you evolving this season and what's next?
Well, today is the best day to ask me that question. One of our mantras in the Outlier Project is see who you can become. And as of today, I think I can say I am, well,
Say it. Say it.
I'm a triathlete. I am a
Ah,
triathlete. So I learned how to swim in January. I bought a bike 2 nights ago, or maybe yesterday. I don't know. And this morning I swam and I rode, and I already know how to run a little. And I am signed up.
running.
I'm signed up for a triathlon, super sprint, and then a sprint. So I'm going to go ahead and say I am evolving into the healthiest version of me.
Hell yes,
Yeah.
Kathy Love, the triathlete at your age of blank and with a crazy story that is continuing to evolve, but in the best way. Thank you for sharing your expertise. I needed this. I know our audience needed it. And I just wish I could put you in a box and bring you to Atlanta so
I
we
know.
could hang
Me
out
too.
IRL more often. So,
Me
anyway,
too. Thanks, Anna.
y'all, you'll be able to get a hold of Kathy. I would assume you want folks to find you on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
And if you're interested in knowing more about the Outlier Project, reach out to Kathy. She can connect you with Scott, and I bet I'll see you around those outlier rooms. So
I will see you
thanks so
there.
much for being here. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thanks for joining the Evolve Talent and HR show. If the conversation landed, share it, tell a leader, pass it forward. That is the multiplier in action. one connection at a time, building momentum across our community. And that is what Evolve is. We build the rooms where connection compounds into impact. So don't sleep on the in-person experiences, the IRL conferences, the executive tables, the fringe events, our community. Show up. That's where the multiplier multiplies. If you know, you know. Head over to evolve-conference.com to see what's evolving and how to stay connected. We'll see you next time.